This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle Academy, where filmmakers and screenwriters go to learn from top Hollywood industry professionals. Learn more at ifhacademy.com. I'd like to welcome to the show David Simpson, man. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm as good as I can be in this crazy mixed up world we live in. It's like, as I say in almost every episode I say now, because the world is more and more insane as we go forward. But I'm holding it here. Yoda's behind me. We're all doing good, man.
Yeah, I need a Yoda behind me. As soon as I saw that, I thought I need that.
I didn't know that I needed a Yoda in my life. But yes, I think everybody needs a life-size Yoda who sits in their office. And like I've said this before, this was a pre-wedding purchase, pre-girlfriend purchase. This is a purchase that was done in my single days back in the late 90s. I think I bought that. 2000, I think 99, 2000 is when I bought that. And this is a different conversation now to have with wife and kids, to purchase a life-size Yoda. It's like the same conversation I'm having with a life-size Hulk. It's like you can't. First, I don't know where to put it because it's 8 feet. I know which one it is. I know where it is. And it's like $6,000, and I can't have that conversation just yet. Maybe once the girls go to school. I don't know.
Yeah.
When they leave home, I'll like, I think it's time.
Yeah. And then you go back and you can do it again.
Exactly.
Wow. That's cool. That Yoda. Wow. Back then.
Yeah, I bought eBay, $400 back then.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm astounded. I didn't think they had things that cool. Like, I just thought that was something like a recent phenomenon that people would have these amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It is, if you remember The Phantom Menace, and a lot of people don't like to remember it, but we do remember The Phantom Menace because it had some good stuff in it. That was, for all the children in listening, all the youngins listening, that was a giveaway at every Blockbuster in the country. So there's about 2,500 of them in the U.S. that who knows if how many exist anymore. But that was the raffle. So you would have a raffle, and one person at every Blockbuster would win it. So I bought one off of eBay. So that's how that happened.
Really cool. I love the intersection of the Phantom Menace. There's so much nostalgia there.
Blockbuster, Phantom Menace, Yoda, like it's all mixed in. But we're not here to talk about the Yoda that sits behind me. We're here to talk about your film and the incredible things you've been doing lately. But before we jump into your project, man, how did you get into the business?
Into filmmaking. It was. I've always loved movies, but I wanted to be a novelist since I was just a little kid, and the dream for me was that my books would eventually be turned into movies, and the science fiction series that I do, the Posthuman series, that's the one that's been the most popular, and when I write it, I think about it like a film. I did creative writing at the University of British Columbia, and you take different things, but screenplay writing was where I learned screenplay structure, and I actually had the same instructor in screenplay writing as I did in long fiction, and it was really funny to see that they taught it in a completely different way, and the way that they taught it was for those industries, because again, this was pre ebooks and Kindle and everything. This was around 2001, 2002, and when you were doing long fiction, they didn't want genre. They were really trying as hard as they could not to have any structure, and then you go into screenplay, and it was genre, and you got to get their attention. There's got to be reversals right away, and what I felt from that was, I think these are just great storytelling techniques. I think that's beyond just something that you need for the business and film. I mean, there's a psychology to this, and so when I started to write that series, I really wrote the books, but I wrote them with screenplay structure in mind. I wrote them to be easy to adapt, and at a certain point, I decided to work with a production company, like a local production company here, to do just a proof of concept. and because the science fiction series I do, it's not set in another galaxy or something. It's Earth. It's supposed to really be us, but our future. And so researching technology and high tech was really important. And because of what I knew, I could see from seeing the budget and seeing the way that production company was putting everything together that there's a lot of inefficiencies here. And then I just decided I could do this. I could do this better and way cheaper. And so I ended up doing that short film myself. And I had a really small crew. It was my wife and one camera assistant, and that was it. But it did well, and it got some attention, and it eventually got Management 360 contacted me and asked for scripts for the first two movies in a series. And at that time, that manager described to me what it would be like once you sell your baby, and how little control you'd end up with after that. And I didn't really like that, and I thought, what I did with this short movie, I felt like I could do that, minus obviously the sets and the costumes and the visual effects. That's where the real money would have to go. But I could do a thriller. I could do something that was contemporary, and I could just scale it up. And so the idea was to just do a feature for the sake of showing that I knew what I was talking about with film, and that maybe that would help. Maybe my voice wouldn't get so small when that time came. And that was it. That's all I was trying to achieve with it. And then of course it became so much more than that, though. That's how I got.
So with the Posthuman short, when I was doing research on the Blackmagic Pocket Camera 1080p, not the 4 or 6K, but the 1080p, the old school Super 16 millimeter sensor, I found your short because I was doing research to see what it really looked like in a cinematic experience. And I don't know if they hadn't done any features yet, or at least none that I could see. We recently had on the show the guys who did Cosmos, that sci-fi show, and they shot the entire thing on a pocket camera 1080p. But I hadn't seen that, or I don't think they had released anything yet when I was doing On the Corner of Ego and Desire. And when I saw your short, I was kind of blown away. I was like, wow, this guy really did a great job. It looks fantastic. And, I'm a real stickler for production design. Not production design, but production quality, and that kind of like just aesthetic of taste. And you have it. You have taste. That's something you can't teach. You can't teach taste. It is something that if you don't have taste as a filmmaker, that's what they hire you for. They hire you for your taste, honestly, because you can hire a crew to do the tech. They're hiring you for your taste. And you had it in the Posthuman short, but I love the way you did it and the production quality and all that stuff that you got out of it. So there was a connection between us that you didn't even know about before I shot my film. And I was like, you know what, if he did that, and then I did my own test with the camera, and I was like, oh no, this little camera is amazing. It's gorgeous, and it's beautiful, and the image is so great. And for me specifically, it was great because I was going for that old like 1990s Super 16, like Clerks, El Mariachi, Reservoir Dogs, almost like that kind of like grainy style. Reservoir it was 35, but all those kind of like Slacker, those kind of films. And I wanted that aesthetic, and I got it beautifully with that camera. So
that camera, I love that camera.
I'll never get rid of it. I'll never get rid of it.
Yeah. It's still really gorgeous, still really holds up. And the things that you can do, you can do so many things when you're filming in ProRes, or you're filming in RAW. Like, you can make it look like any kind of film that you want, any kind of film stock, like digitally. And I've written an article or two about that, and I don't know how many people that are thinking about getting into filmmaking but don't know too much about the technical side or the tech know that's true. But I mean, you can have your cake and eat it too now. I mean, if you're thinking you got to film on film, I mean,
no,
it's probably amazing. Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy talk, sir. That's crazy talk. Who shoots other
Crazy
than
job.
Nolan? Other than Nolan, who shoots now? And I'm joking. Of course, a lot of people shoot on
Yeah.
film, but that camera specifically, you could buy a package, a full package on eBay for $1,000, $1,200, and that's with like a rig. And
Mm-hmm.
I stick a juice box on the top, and it runs 8 hours.
Well, wow.
8 hours all
Yeah.
on, not like on off, on. Just let it run for 8 hours on one juice
Nice.
box, and it's $100 the juice box. So I bought like
Wow.
3 or 4 of those, and I was like, off we go.
8 hours.
8 hours, man. It just does not, because it's so small and it doesn't take a lot, and it's just so great. So and so I don't know if you had your short transferred to DCP for theatrical, but I did. I did a 2K blow up, and I showed it at the Chinese theater, and I had never seen it before in a screen. I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna look like crap. Oh my god, it looked stunning,
Awesome.
stunning. It basically looked exactly like it did on my color grading monitor here. I was just like, I was blown away. So people who like, oh, it's 1080p, then you got to go up if you want to go theater. Like BS. You could so shoot on that little camera. It has great aesthetics, and for the certain kind of stories that you're trying to tell, it's fantastic.
Yeah, most of those things, I mean, the projectors, there's a lot of them that aren't even 2K anyway. I mean, HD would be fine, but you can upscale, and that's great to hear. The closest I come to that is when I did my TEDx. I actually had done the short by then, and because I was doing a TEDx about artificial intelligence in the future, I was able to show little clips, and it was on a big screen behind like that, and it looked fantastic.
It holds. It holds. It holds. The technology's there. So your new film is called Dangerous to Know, and it looks awesome, dude. And I want to dig into how you made it, because you made it for about $6,000 or $7,000 production budget, right? About that, right?
Yeah, that would be right. Yeah, about
And
that much.
so I mean, I saw the trailer, and the trailer will be in the show notes, as well as I think I'll be able to share the post-human short, so you guys can see it in the show notes as well. But when I saw it, first of all, whoever edited your trailer, if that was it, was that you?
That was me.
That was fantastic. I'm a trailer editor. I've edited trailers a long time. I love the choice of the music. It was great. I'm assuming you don't have the rights to it, so which is fine. You could do that on YouTube. You just can't monetize it. Can't monetize it, but you could throw it up there, see what happens, and if they don't care, you've got a very high-end trailer with high-end music to promote your movie. So that's something really quickly, that's something that a lot of filmmakers don't understand, is if you use music that's not without permission on YouTube, YouTube will let you know in a matter of milliseconds the second you upload it. But a lot of times they don't care, and the owners of the copyright will just go, we're just going to monetize it and take all the money. But as a filmmaker, you don't care, because you're just trying to promote your movie. So that's something that you could look into. I've done that in the past. You just did that. It was a great song. But I love the thing about the trailer alone in the film. It looks so big. It looks such like a very high production value kind of project. It does not look like a $6,000 or $7,000 project, which is one of the reasons why I want to have you on the show. So tell me a little bit about how that project came to be, and the choice of equipment and things like that.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so much. The reason I did a psychological thriller is because that's just a genre that I love. Some of my favorite movies are psychological thrillers, and it's one of the circumstances where you're thinking, okay, so what could I do? What practically, and there's a lot more. I mean, once you're willing to let go of the idea that you're going to do a big budget science fiction or superhero movie or something, there's a lot you can do, and it's not a period piece. And so what I was thinking was, I wanted to keep the cast relatively small. I mean, it's not as small as some movies of this scale, but it's pretty small. There's really only 8 credited actors, and most of it focuses on 3 characters, but a big chunk of the movie on just one. Bridget Graham's character is alone for 40 minutes or something in the movie, and I love the idea of doing that, of filming something so intimately like that, because I knew I could make it. I knew I could make it look, really, really terrific. And if I just had the story came to me really, really quickly, and I started writing the script, because all of this happened very fast. I did the post-human short in the summer of 2015, and then it was I think it was like October of 2015 that we did our launch of that and put it online. And then I think the Filmmaker magazine article that came out in, I think it was like February, immediately led to Management 360 contacting me, and so I actually adapted the first two books of that series, and then immediately afterwards, or just rolled right into a third script, and that was Dangerous to Know. And we were shooting by May. So it came together really fast. We did the location scouting. We got lucky in that we only visited one other scenic cabin, which was also incredibly gorgeous. But we didn't have to travel around too much, because the second one we locked that down. And the owners of that location were so great. They were these kind of not quite retired, but semi-retired hippie artists that were like, "Yeah, this is great," and they were amazing.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. They were the best, and they just would let us. They weren't uptight at all, and in fact, we probably could have done more and broken some things that we wanted, but we didn't. But the location is just spectacular, and so. They didn't charge us anything extra. You had to get insurance, but locations. I know this from doing the post-human short. That location was really, really expensive, because that was an Arthur Erickson design house. I needed
it was gorgeous. It looked gorgeous.
This guy, man, this fellow that I cannot believe I persuaded him to let us use the house that day. But it's right on the ocean. That's not CG. I mean, that there is visual effects. There's sort of a future city that you see out in the distance, but that place, that location is totally real. But it looked very futuristic, and I needed something like that. And so it was very, very, very expensive. But the location, the cabin that we used in Dangerous to Know was just Airbnb, and you just had to. They didn't charge us extra. It was just that price, and so.
But you let them know that you were shooting.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because they were they loved it. They were excited about it. And what an amazing location. When you actually get the chance to see the movie, there's things that are. It's not just the house. I mean, there's this incredible hayloft. It's not. They actually have sold it since then, so this doesn't exist anymore. But they had an old. Broken down airplane in the shed, and it was. Yes. I mean, it was just the chances of these things. The way it all looked. I mean, you didn't need to have a set designer, and I don't think a set designer could have come up with something that
would have cost you. It would have cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and it just looked so real. I think it looked even more real than the sets that you think are real. But when you see this, it just had those quirks, those personality of the people that owned it. This big Coca-Cola sign, this old Coca-Cola sign up on the wall. It's in so many of our shots. But it was perfect for us. And it happened to be very close to this waterfall. And, we filmed a scene on the edge of this waterfall. It is so spectacular. And, we did that. We just did that gorilla. And it's, it was almost like fate. Got pretty lucky.
So what kind of equipment did you use?
I had a Blackmagic Production 4K, and then I brought my Pocket with me in case I needed it. And I did shoot some stuff, but there's nothing in the movie with the Pocket. And then the camera that I thought was going to be my B camera ended up being my A camera, and that was Sony A7S II. And the reason why I got that camera was actually just because I knew a lot of the script was going to be low light, and I was going to use the Pocket for that. Because the Pocket with a Metabones speed booster on it, it's actually pretty good in low light. But but the A7S II was just ridiculous in low light, and it just made it made things possible that just had not been possible before. And so we could. we really could use the available lighting in a dark interior and get incredible results. So we used that, and we did our research and got a Sennheiser mic and a boom, and just everything that we needed. When I did the short, it was really only just the summer before, and we used a glide cam. But finally, an affordable electric stabilizer finally came online, and it was just the original Came TV, which was, it had a lot of limitations and it wasn't great, but at that time it was amazing for us because it allowed me to film in ways that I'm so glad I had it, because I really do not think, just having a glide cam with the weights on it, I just don't think I could have got the results. And it was something that when we had the world premiere and the critics saw it, they were talking about the fluid camera shots, and that was all of that was just due to the luck, because I didn't even know that existed until just before we started shooting, and then eventually I got a Xeon. That's the
And how and isn't there? We were talking earlier. There wasn't there a connection with David Fincher, and his way of doing things, and how you decided to move the camera a little bit.
Yes, you said that there was a connection between us with the pocket, and I also had a connection with you, and that's why I was telling you about it right before we got going, because I had to thank you. When I was filming, Fincher is probably my biggest technical influence. I just love his look, and so while I was filming it, there was something that I hadn't picked up on that you had, and that's why when you contacted me about doing the interview, I thought, like, oh, this is so familiar, this name, and then I remembered this influence that you had on me, because you'd done a video about Fincher, and you'd picked up on something that I hadn't consciously picked up on, which was that he does this very subtle in post, these moves where he sort of moves the camera with the actor, and it was such a subtle but such an important observation, so important, because by that point I think I'd filmed almost all the scenes, and what I was saying to the actors when I'm using the Came TV is I was saying, I'm helping you. The way I film it is I want to help your performance. I'm always thinking, how is what I'm doing with the camera helping to amplify the emotion in the moment that you're experiencing, rather than just having it on a tripod, off to the side. And so I think that instinctually I knew that was the right thing to do, but I hadn't consciously picked up on what you picked up on. And as soon as that happened, I went back, and all the scenes that I'd already edited, I started to do that. I started to make sure in post, just move the camera just that little bit. And it really makes a difference. And I really think, it's really amazing. Like, it was so great to get all those critical reviews, and they just keep bringing up the cinematography. They keep bringing up how expensive it looks.
And you're the one, and you were the DOP.
Yes, yeah, and usually the cameraman. My wife is the other cameraman, because she would film if I was on camera, because I'm also in the movie. She knew exactly what we were doing, and she would film it with the same style, and she's a big fan of Fincher. She also watched your video too. It really did make a big difference. It really does.
Wow,
because
right.
I actually think that it's a subtle thing. Like, I hadn't noticed it, but it really changes your enjoyment for a movie when you don't have the jitters all the time. Jitters are fine for different styles, but when you have something that's just so smooth, you can just get lost in the movie and in what's happening with the characters. And that was something that you really picked up on, the way it helps you identify with the characters, and effortlessly. I can't thank you enough. Seriously.
I appreciate that. No, look, Fincher. Look, you watch Social Network.
Yeah.
Seriously, and Tarantino called it one of the greatest films of the 2010s. I think he said the greatest film of the 2010s of the decade. He said,
Yeah.
but it's a masterpiece. And you look at Fincher and you look at specifically Social Network. You're just like, really, the way a movie about how Facebook was created, like,
Yeah.
like that doesn't seem like it's going to be really entertaining at all. And arguably, you're just riveted, and it is his. I mean, it's we can just geek out on Fincher all day, and that's
Pretty much perfect.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you give me started on Fincher or Kubrick, and I'll go for hours and hours on both of them.
Me too. Bridget Graham was said something while we're about halfway through filming, and she turned to her co-star Andrew Wilson, and I once again I was explaining, this is how Fincher would do it, and she says, and one thing I've picked up from working on this movie is that David doesn't like David Fincher.
Exactly. Now, one of the things that a lot of these low budget films, problems that a lot of these low budget films have is audio, and having recording audio on site and on production audio specifically. And for my film, for my little film, people are always they always ask me, how did you get the audio? You were in the middle of Sundance in front of 1,000 people, and everyone sounds crystal clear. And I use lavs, just really good production wireless lavs. That's it, and just had them walk all over the place. How did you do yours?
Yeah, I've got a lav on right now. We worked really, really hard on the audio because the audio is so important. And I'm really glad you asked, actually, because we're amongst friends because we're filmmakers. This isn't the sort of thing I'd usually go into with people, but just like your tip that you picked up on with slightly moving the camera just a little bit, and because I have a major interest in a reason, a motivation to be so interested in artificial intelligence and sort of reverse engineering the human brain, and I really think that what you picked up on there, and when I say that it's effortless, is important to the experience, but people don't necessarily know consciously why that really helps. So with the sound, I mean, if a sound is like just noticeably bad, consciously noticeably bad, that's just no one's going to like the movie. But if the sound isn't polished, like if it isn't really, really cared for, they might not actually point out the sound, but you notice that their enthusiasm isn't quite the same. And I've sort of run the test where if I don't do this method that my wife thought I was kind of crazy to do, if I don't do it, and I let someone watch a scene, and then if I do it, and I let another person watch the scene, that the difference in the reaction and the enthusiasm was noticeable. And it was just a matter of going in and dialogue editing meticulously. And I did that in DaVinci Resolve in their Fairlight audio software. And I learned to do it. I did their course to become accredited, and so when I was doing it, that sound design, what I would do with the dialogue is I would just really go in and I would make sure that microphones when you're speaking, people may not realize it, but they may not pick up the end of a sentence or even a word.
A word, yeah.
Yeah, and so it might get muffled a bit. Now your brain will do the work. Your brain will sort of filter it in, but after a while, after a couple of hours, that can actually start to it can cause fatigue. But if you go in and you just manually bring up the end of that word that was a little bit muffled, the actor may not have even necessarily done it. It could just be the microphone. But if you go and you make those words crystal clear, it is amazing what it does. It really makes a big difference. It takes a lot of time, and I wish there was just a button you could click that did it. And I guess one day there will be. But
they're very look. When I did my mix, I was with my sound designer and my sound mixer, and the stuff that he would do, he would literally bring up buttons, and he's like, "Here, watch this." And like I still remember, we were walking by a construction site, walking on Main Street, and all my characters are talking, and I'm like, dude, what can we do with this? How can we fix this? He's like, hold on a second. He brings up this app in his thing, pops it up, and there's just like this big, not wave, but like graphical representation. He's like, I see that clank is here, and pulls it out of the waveform while leaving the rest of the dialogue in there. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, that's insane. And he muffled all the construction sound down to a point where you could barely hear it. Like, it was background. And then the dialogue was fine. I'm like, what is? He's like, yeah, this just came out a year ago. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
It's so cool. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can do. There's a story that only Jenny and I know this, but here, I'll tell everybody.
It's just you and me. Don't worry, no one else will know about it. It's just you and me, David. It's you and me, David.
We spent a whole week, and I don't want to I won't call out the actor because it's not that actor's fault, but where in every take there was this very subtle, and on the day I didn't notice it at all, or else I would have made sure there was other takes. But even ADR afterwards did it again, and I guess it's just a strange quirk, but the word seriously is like the saliva that kind of gets caught in the back, and it became seriously like that. It would just pop so loudly, and it was like a dramatic moment, and you can't leave in, and it's because it's in the word. Right. If it was after the word, but it wasn't. It was right in as the actor was saying it. So what we spent a week to remove that thing. Eventually we did, and you can't hear it, and it's just totally smooth now. But we had to, and it's just amazing. Like we're doing that instead of anything else on the movie. We're just trying to get rid of it.
Well, when there's money, you throw a money hose at that, and you have a team of sound designers and sound mixers and dialogue editors. That's a specific guy. There's a dialogue editor who goes in and does what you just did. And he'll spend 8 hours while the rest of the team is moving on with the movie, and they'll just bring it back in. But when it's just you, if you got no money, it's going to cost you time. If you got money, then time is relevant. Is relative.
Yes. Yeah. That's 100% true. Jenny and I still we laugh when we're watching the sound department in a regular, budgeted or big budget movie, and we just see all the names just in the sound, and we're thinking, wow, that's a job. That's just one of the things we had to do.
It's funny because I'll talk to some bigger directors on the show sometimes, and off air I'll tell them about a film that like my 3000, and you could see their eyes glaze over. They don't understand how it's physically possible to talk. I was talking to a director who was on the set of Avatar with James Cameron. He was shadowing James Cameron on Avatar, which is a great place to be, I can imagine. And and somebody walked up to him and was talking to James about a low budget film, and his low budget was $500,000. Like, it was a $500,000 movie. And James Cameron looked at him like he had horns coming out of his head. He's like, "What? You made a whole movie for $500,000? Like, I don't understand. I spent that on my coffee this morning. I don't understand what you're talking about." I've run into this throughout my career when I do low budget stuff. People just like, I just don't understand how you. It's hilarious. Actually, it's hilarious.
True. Yeah, we've had the opportunity now to talk to some big directors, and it's like, on the one side, it's awesome that they're so far, like, they've been lovely. I mean, they treat you like you're one of them, and there's really no difference. But then on the other hand, you realize, I technically know a lot more.
At that level,
deep, yeah.
But when
they've got people to do that, so they don't have to learn the little. Fincher, I think, does, but
Fincher does everything.
Very few.
Fincher does everything. But the difference is that they might not know how to make a $500,000 movie or a $5,000 or $7,000 movie, but they know how to make $100 million movie, and that is a skill set that is a learning curve. Like, if right now Kevin Feige calls you up and is like, I loved your movie. I want you to do the next Avengers. And we're going to do a little lower budget this time, 150 million, David. So a little lower because we thought that we needed someone who knew budget, so we're going to bring you in. I promise you, after you've crapped yourself a few times, the learning curve for something like that is going to be massive. So it goes both ways, and it is a skill set to the politics, how to handle those kind of departments, there's a completely different mindset. And I think the only director that I know of who kind of jumps back and forth like that is Robert Rodriguez, because Robert can do, a $7,000 movie, and he just did it. He recently did it just to test himself if he could do it. But he also knows how to work in the bigger, battle, Alita, not Alita, was it Alita? Yeah, Alita, Battle Angel. Attila, whatever. Alita, Battle Angel, that movie he just did with James Cameron, which was a big budget sci-fi movie. But it's a skill set, both ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel sometimes that the main thing that it has in common, but yeah, that entire skill set is a completely different thing. It would almost seem like a totally different job. So the one thing that holds both of them in common is just what are you actually capturing? I mean, and ultimately you're responsible either way, because you might have a cinematographer, or you've got a sound designer, but people, if a movie's not good, people don't go, wow, the movie would have been good, but who's your sound designer? He really screwed you. People are just going to say that sucks. It's your fault. That person with whom the name is on that's who they're going to blame. So you've got to stay on top of it for sure. So even if you just don't know the little technical things, it doesn't matter. You'll get the blame. So you got to make sure it's good.
I always tell filmmakers to learn as much about every part of the process as humanly possible, because you might not do everything, but you need to educate yourself on everything. Yes. Like the reason why you as a filmmaker and as a filmmaker am able to do these low budget films is because we lean on our own toolbox that we've built up over the course of our careers. And the reason why we can, get high quality, good production value kind of projects out there is because we know how to do that, but we're doing the heavy lifting. As a filmmaker who doesn't understand those then you have to hire people or bring people in. And at these low budgets, man, it's tough, man. Can you imagine bringing in a DP who can work under those kind of constraints, who are going to work well, who can get you high quality? They're rare. Those are unicorns. And getting a sound guy in there that really can jump in there, and getting a VFX team in there, it's a tough thing. So the more that you can put on your own shoulders at the low budgets, the better it will be. I think. And even when you're doing $100 million movie, you best know everything that's going on.
That's such a good point. And let's just be. I think we're both, we wouldn't be making movies the way we do if we weren't both majorly optimists. And so we're just keeping optimists here.
You have to be.
We've pulled off something amazing, and some of the listeners might be dreaming of being able to pull off something that we've pulled off. But you and I would like the opportunity to make a small $150 million.
It's just a small $150 million. I mean, I don't get up for less than 175, but I'll do 150 million. I mean, that's just me.
Yeah, it'll be a challenge, but
it'll be a challenge. No coffee.
I guess maybe, but at this, I think the thing that is so similar between those two, like as you're saying, is that if you. Ultimately, all of those jobs, like those key jobs, are so important, and those are the things that really are going to be noticed by the audience, even if they're not necessarily consciously noticing it. So you are responsible, and so if you don't understand it on some level, you could be taken advantage of when you get to the big time by someone who maybe just doesn't have the passion necessarily for your project and that you have. So you do have to stay on top of it. It doesn't mean you got to be a jerk or anything, but it's important for you to technically understand. And if you need to step in yourself, you actually could probably do that. And so that's, I think, something that if Fincher understands that for sure. Oh. But another way to get some advice, I guess, for people who are in the spot where they're trying to get to just where we are, where they've made a feature film on a low budget. If they're thinking that they need to have someone who's I mean, you'd have to be so lucky to be able to find someone who will just be a DP. I mean, that's a huge job, but who will just be a DP and has the same passion that you have for this thing because you're trying to direct something. And then
Right.
someone else is like, well, I want to break in sound. And that they're all just as passionate and have that talent and the drive, and everyone would work together because you're only as strong as your weakest link. So when you're getting into making that kind of movie, I think if you can take on the responsibility yourself, it's like you're avoiding a weakness. There's something, a chink in your armor that is just not going to be there because you didn't have to depend on someone else. It's important.
I would agree. And if you look at any director, any famous director, any well-known director, any legendary directors that anyone listening has looked up to, Fincher, Nolan, Spielberg, Cameron, whoever, Scorsese, Coppola, all of them, they are all technical directors.
Yeah.
All of them. All of them understand the technology, some more than others, but when Scorsese's doing his notes, and I've seen him do it, he's giving you the lenses he wants for the shot. He's telling you how to move this stuff there. Cameron obviously is one of the most technical directors on the planet, and he's an anomaly. Fincher is another one. Nolan, Spielberg, who's not known for being a technical director, quote unquote, but I promise you, and I've talked to people who've worked with Steven, he knows everything about everything about the movie making process. And that's your job as a director and as a filmmaker, to learn and now even more so because the technology is so cheap and you could do so much and things are, DaVinci Resolve is free essentially. And all of this kind of stuff, and these cameras are $2,000-$3,000. Are you kidding me? They're nothing. That's nothing in the world of what we do. And you have to understand all the technical knowledge, because if you think you're going to walk on set like that old image of the director with the monocle and the bullhorn and sit down and just yell action and cut, which by the way, I know those directors. And they don't go far. They rarely have a long career. They might hang for a bit. They might do one or two movies and then they're done. And I think, and I'd love to hear what you think. I think that budgets are starting to drop lower and lower and lower because the content is becoming so hard to sell and to make money on that unless you're a studio with major backing or on a major IP, you gotta have to make a movie for 15 million or 20 million. And I know that people are like, what? I'm like, in the studio world, that's really low budget. And now more so even 5 to 10 million and $4 million and those kind of budget ranges. That's what Hollywood's looking for, and that's what investors are looking for. If you'd be able to create high quality content at a low cost, relatively speaking, and you can't do that if you don't understand the technology. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. It's funny when I did it and I started in 2016. The tech, I was so grateful for what we had, but I mean, the difference between the A7S II and the A7S III, I was just thinking how much time, how many takes would I not have wasted had I had that level of focus, and it's just a lot in post-production too. Just in, people don't need to do this, but 2016, 2017. If you just do a little Google search, the complaints about how Apple had left their iMacs behind, and they really hadn't given them enough power. Now that's definitely not the problem. That's not a bottleneck at all. In fact, they're actually kind of they're ahead of the software now. The hardware is very strong. So it's becoming easier. Sony just dropped the FX3 today, I guess. It's an incredible camera. It's cheap.
Blackmagic just dropped theirs like a couple days ago. The 6K, the new 6K, which is looks insane. Yes. $2,500. It's amazing.
Amazing. And it's funny to think. I mean, 5 years sounds like a lot of time, but when we go back to that, when I did the Posthuman with the Pocket, and you're thinking, I would love all of that stuff that is there now, all of it, and now filmmakers who haven't made their first, we'll call it like passion short, like they really made a short, or or a feature, and they're thinking they can't. It's it's still really hard, but it's getting easier all the time. So as you're looking forward into the future, I think you're right. You're going to become people have the tools, and so if they actually have the passion, it'll become easier. It's like the smarter the software gets, the smaller a group of people you need to make something incredible, and that's it's not fully a positive, but it's if you're looking to break in and create something and you're just really passionate and you want to make a great movie, that is a positive for sure.
And it's a positive and a negative, just like the good news is all the cameras are super cheap and anyone can buy it. The bad news is the cameras are super cheap and anyone can buy it.
Yes.
That's essentially what we're dealing with, because now people who really don't have, what it takes to be a filmmaker, and that's something that they will discover on their own. And who am I to judge if they can or not? But bottom line is, if it can you make a living doing what you're doing? So a lot of people who are just looky-loos, or people who are just flooding the market with, less than best quality of product, is diluting the marketplace to the point now where now it's so expensive to make any money. It's so difficult to make any money at all with an independent film or any kind of content, because it's, unless you've got a big star in it, unless you're on an IP, it's really a difficult process. So, but at these budget ranges, if you make a $20,000 or $15,000 movie and you can't make your money back, you're in the wrong game. Then you obviously are not, you don't know what you're doing on the post world, and you really need to figure something out. Which brings me to my next question, sir. Your distribution plan, sir. How are you planning to get this out there in the world?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Cosmos, and I didn't know. I think that interview of yours just came
last week, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've been following that recently, because what we did was, and I think that's how you found me, was through I mean, it might have
article.
been
Article. Yeah, it was an article. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was doing the Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter was, this is just before the pandemic gets started, and so we were thinking, 2020 would be a normal year, right. And we do the festival circuit, and everything changed so quick. So the Kickstarter was really to fund, traveling around and going to not just for fun, literally just to take the movie around, and it's still funded submitting, and things worked out well with sending the movie around, but we feel like that's pretty much over now, and it's time to find a home for it. And that's when we found Cosmos. Actually, was doing that research, but also through getting into Fright Fest in London, we met a lot of directors, and obviously, I think we might have been the only movie that didn't already have distribution, actually. And so we got to talk to those other directors and find out their story, and so we're following in their footsteps now, but we're just starting now. So the rights are available, but we're putting together our materials. They're almost ready, and we're just about ready. We've got the list of everyone that we're going to be contacting, and we're excited about it. And I think the movie had its premiere, and because it streamed, I guess a fair amount of people got to see it that day. But it's still not out there, and people have been waiting for a long time, and they've seen this trailer, and right. They've seen clips from, because we had a bunch of clips when we were doing that Kickstarter that we put out, and they're excited and they want to see it, and we want them to see it finally as well, and we especially want Hollywood to see it, because really that was the point. It was the introduction to me and my stories and my storytelling, and to get them to understand that we know how to tell a story.
So I think at the end of the day, too, for you, it might not be, and please correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
It's not as important for you to make an obscene amount of money with this film as more important to maybe get more exposure for you and for your projects and lead to something else. So that could be your end game, as opposed to, I need to make $100,000, $200,000 with this. Is that or you want? I mean, obviously, we want both, but but choosing a partner, you might choose a distribution company that will get you everywhere and might have a little bit more cachet, but chances of you getting paid or making any money is going to be nil to none. Or go with a smaller distribution company that will get you paid, but they don't have the reach or the cachet of the other one to kind of get you seen in other places. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, what I value the most definitely is making sure that a lot of people can see it, and that doesn't just mean that it's available to a lot of people, because it can be available to a lot of people, but if they can't find it, I mean, visibility is everything, and that's something I know really, really well from the ebook game, and having my books out there for so long. If I mean, the book can be fantastic, you can get amazing reviews, but if you can't get on that front or second page of sci-fi I mean, that means, I think there's like 12, depending on what device you're on, there's like 12 books that are on that front page, and so if you're not in that top 24, you're not selling enough to make a living. And I've been fortunate enough to be on that front page a fair amount. But once you fall to the third page, you're still top 40 book out of, in science fiction, we're talking, probably 500,000 books. That's amazing. You must be rich, and you're not. Whether you're on the third or the 300th page, you sell the same, and that's what visibility is all about. So with Dangerous to Know, I've got to get that visibility, and so that's what I'm looking for more than anything else, because I do trust people. I just trust the audience, and Dangerous to Know is like it would have a similar audience to, I think, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo or Gone Girl. I mean, it's a pretty big audience, but it's not necessarily the everything audience. It's not necessarily and there's nothing wrong with this at all, but it's not that, $1 billion audience for this particular thing.
Which is fine.
I think, yeah. But the Post-Human series or some of my science fiction maybe would, but this one, it's not a super small audience. It's pretty big, but it's very intelligent. And you can really see, the director of Fright Fest, like his history is, like his profession is, he's a psychologist, and he's well educated. And it was, it's no surprise then that when he saw it, he loved it. And it's that kind of movie. It's not too difficult for people to understand it all, but you have to enjoy that. You have to enjoy not necessarily having all the answers and trying to figure out what the answers are. And if you get a thrill out of that, then that's good. And that's a big enough audience. So I've got to be able to reach them. And if I can do that, then the rest, I think, takes care of itself. But I mean, it's easy to say.
It's like, yeah, it's just, all you need to do is get a Netflix deal, get a check, then call up Disney, tell them I want to make my sci-fi movie for Disney Plus, and just give me $100 million. That's all you need to do. It's not hard, guys.
This is simple.
It's simple. It's super simple.
What are people not thinking about this?
We on the show a bunch of times I've talked. I've said things like that. Like, I haven't said things like that, but I've had guests say like, yeah, all you need to do is find your audience, build your audience up, and then sell your product to your audience, sell your films to your audience. That's all you really need to do, and it sounds so straightforward. It sounds like it sounds like building a house. Because building a house is as straightforward as you can get. You get the wood, you get the concrete, you get the blueprint, and there's a way to go about it. And at the end of the day, you'll have a house. In the film industry, in the product creation, and the getting it out there in the world, it is the only business in the world that you could spend $100 million on a product that is worthless. It is it's the only industry. It's the only industry that you could spend millions of dollars. And if you do it incorrectly, it is literally worthless.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you really have to, man, maybe we're crazy,
Oh,
you and
we are.
I.
No, no, no. Let's just put that. Let's just
Yeah,
state that we are all nuts. Filmmakers are
yeah,
crazy. We're nuts,
yeah,
and unfortunately, you and I have been bitten by that bug, and we are going to be sick for quite some time with this filmmaking
yeah.
thing that it will never go away, ever, ever, ever. I've seen it. I've seen 70-year-olds show up. I'm like, I got bitten by the bug when I was in my 20s, but I went and became a doctor. Now I'm now in my 60s, and I want to direct. It never goes away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it got me. I've always loved movies, but it was actually the things that you're talking about that made me just my mind didn't even really go to the idea that I'd ever direct anything because of the way it was. How impossible it seemed to break in didn't appeal to me. And so it was when the tech made it possible, and I could see that. That's when, well, I love everything else about it. I'd love to make a movie if I could. And so that's really why I got in, because it became something that it was something that was possible to do. But I mean, I think that's really important advice. It's like you do have to trust yourself. It's totally normal to be nervous if you're going to make a movie. Totally normal to go, I've got to have an open mind. Someone might know something I don't know, and that could be valuable to me. Like when I saw your tip on post production with moving the camera, that I'm not an idiot. That was brilliant. Spoke to me. I used it, but you really do have to trust yourself. You got to feel like I can do this, because when you actually people watch movies, you're seeing the best take. You're seeing it after the audio's been put in, the music's been put in. It's just really gorgeous, but it always looks kind of when you're actually on the set. Like, it doesn't look like it should be so good. So if someone's just standing off to the side, they might think, oh, this is gonna be a disaster, because who knows what take they saw. They're not hearing the sound right. Maybe it's echoey and they're gonna change it. They have to with ADR or something. But it can. You might be the only one who knows it's gonna work out. So you have to trust yourself.
And we'll come back to what I said at the beginning: taste. It's all about taste. They hire you for your taste, because in your mind, it's how it's going to come out. And sometimes it's your job to share that vision. But look, when I was shooting my film, nobody thought it was going to be anything. Like, all the actors were like, we're just here and having a good time. But when I actually had people, like, when they came in to do a test screen, they're like, oh my God, it's a movie. I'm like, yeah, it was a movie. Like, you guys didn't even believe I was going to be able to make a movie. I'm like, no, but like it looks like a real movie. I'm like, and it sounds like a real movie. I'm like, yeah, that's what I shot. But so I'm gonna ask you a few questions to ask all my guests, sir. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
Oh, okay. Well, I think there's different ways to get in, and like with a lot of things, that I'm not going to say that, hey, I've got the right way. I think, like, the Cosmos directors are terrific. I really love what they're doing, and I have a lot in common with them. But there's probably a little bit of difference in the philosophy. Not much, actually, pretty similar. But there's other people who feel, no, like, when I make it, I want to have a larger crew. And that isn't necessarily bad. There's other ways to get in. But I do think that if you're having a tough time with that, or maybe if you have made some short films and you had a crew and you tried to make it with, a Red Epic and like an Alexa and all of that type of stuff, and you had the professional gear and it still didn't really work out. I would really consider looking into how powerful the affordable tech is. Like, you actually own it, become proficient with it, and make that movie. I mean, the stuff that has just come online recently that we talked about, that new Blackmagic, that Sony today, the A7S3. I mean, you don't need a camera beyond that to make a movie that's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I just had my movie come out. Critics, real critics, real directors, big directors have seen it, and including Alex Rory, and said it
Wow,
looks great.
thank you, sir.
Yeah, but it's Mike Flanagan, same thing. Production value is great, and the movie looks great, and the reviews kept talking about the gorgeous cinematography, but there's no Arri Alexa. It's not that I mean, an Arri Alexa could. There's nothing stopping that. Those movies can look fantastic, but if you think that you can't because there's a limitation with that tech, it's not actually true. It's you could do it. So if you've got the passion, you've got the story, I would say make something as good as you can,
Mm-hmm.
and then and then go from there. But if you show that you can make something, if you show you got some talent, then people will be really interested in having you as a director, or at least having you maybe be a cinematographer or something, because you got the technical skill.
Now, what is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film business or in life?
Oh, I still have to keep teaching myself this one. This one fits really nicely, actually. Is that just don't give other people don't place other people that are in important positions on a pedestal. I think that's really important, and I have to keep reminding myself of that. There's so many times that I may not have thought I could do something just because I think that this other person has a special quality that I don't have, this special ability to think that I don't have, and there's it's amazing how many dreams that'll kill before they even really get going. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important not to do that. We've been talking about Fincher, we've been talking about Tarantino, and all those directors. I love their movies. I have so much respect for them. But being able to make a movie myself means that I feel, and I love this about being able to just talk to Mike Flanagan. It's like so far ahead of where I am in the business, so much success. But when it comes right down to it, he's just like, yeah, I was where you were, and he never says, oh, maybe you'll make it. He's just like, when you get to where I am, I love that. I just love that. He's like he never changed. He's still like an indie at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's no way I won't be. I'll always be an indie at heart, no matter where I go in the industry. So, yeah, don't be afraid.
I'll tell you this. After talking to some of the biggest directors in the world, and continuously I'm humbled by able to have long conversations with some of these directors. I just realized that we're all filmmakers, man. Like, yeah, you have 3 Oscars. But when you were starting, you did what you had to do to get going. You were a PA, you learning this stuff, and they're like, yeah, I did this movie and it was crap, but I learned a lot. And here, it's the same path that all of us are taking. Sure, they had different times at different times in history. They had different circumstances. They were right place, right time, all these kind of things. But the core of the experience of being a filmmaker is not different. No one is just born and thrown onto a $150 million set. That doesn't happen. And I know a lot of people think that happens, or like you just went to film school and boom, you're done, and now you're doing Avengers. Like no, everyone struggles, everyone works their way up, everyone has to hustle, and a lot of times, people like perfect example, I think like Mike Flanagan and you, like you're probably farther ahead than he was at that time in his career, purely because of tech. And the things that we had available to, like, I would have killed to have this kind of tech when I was in my 20s. I would have killed, right? Like we had to like shoot. I mean, I shot my first big short on DVX 100A, and edited on Final Cut 4, and that was like, Film Look. Remember the Film Look? That was a great camera.
Yeah. Christopher Nolan's following, right? I don't know if you've actually seen it, but that's like such a great. I knew you'd know all about that backstory, but just that when I think that's only just the 90s.
Yeah, it took him like a year to shoot that thing, right? It was like he just kept on the weekends and going, and it's just like being prepared for when that rocket ship takes off is and it might never take off the way you want to, and I promise you it won't take off like you want to. That I can promise you. That's one thing I've learned in my own life and talking to all these amazing filmmakers over the years, is it never is exactly how you planned. No one knows. I promise you that Spielberg did not expect to spend 180 days on the ocean with a shark that didn't work. And that turned into the biggest movie of all time. Like, I promise you that was not the path he was expecting.
I had this professor once that had this saying. I love this saying. I love the idea of being able to make this a little bit more famous, because he said it to me once. It was just about an essay. It wasn't a film professor, because it was English lit. But what he said was, I had a lot of trouble with the beginning of the paper, and but in the end I got a really good grade. And I told him that. I just said, like, I was worried about that, because I was really struggling with the beginning. And he said, even from the most difficult and bloody births can come a beautiful baby. And I think that's what, with your career, it can seem like such a struggle, and it can seem like you went completely off route, and then you look back after and you're like, actually, I didn't. Like, everything is working out. The dots are aligning. It's just the path you're not expecting, though.
Dude, if you would have told me when I was starting out that, like, one day you're gonna be host of a podcast and you're going to talk to some of the greatest filmmakers of all time, and you're going to befriend some of them and hang out with them and talk and ask the craziest questions you've ever wanted to ask an Oscar winning director, and I'm like, I would have never in a million years thought that this was the path I've taken. Oh, and by the way, by doing that, you're going to be able to do whatever you want as far as your own filmmaking career and go off and make small movies, and my story is still being written. It's just never, ever what you expect it to be. It's insane. It's an insane journey, but that's life. That is life. And last question, sir. 3 of your favorite films of all time.
I'll start with The Matrix, because of the sci-fi and the philosophy, and I love that. I just love it. It also looks just gorgeous. It's done technically so well, but it's just such it fits with what I try to do with everything I do, which is to try and create something that's deep, but you don't necessarily have to sacrifice enjoyment for that. And I think that that's one of the things that in academia, with literature and with high art, sometimes they forget that it doesn't have to be grueling. It can still be, if you can have your cake and eat it too. This means something to me. It's not just fluff, but an audience can just watch it and just really love it and enjoy it. And usually what ends up happening is it becomes very, very memorable, and they really do love it. So The Matrix really taught that to me. I love that one. And then I'm going to say Fincher for last. Tarantino is, I think, my biggest influence for screenwriting. And when I was making Dangerous to Know, I watched an interview with him about how he loved writing these dialogue scenes because of being an indie. That was the easiest thing to film.
It's cheap.
You could. Yeah, it's cheap, right? You can set up the cameras and you can really work on the art, and you can run it again and again with the actors, and so you look at the opening scene. This is one of the greatest scenes. I wouldn't put any scene above it. It's just there's other scenes that are probably around equal in the history of film, but the opening scene of Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah, you read my mind.
Yeah, and I was trying to reach that. Every time I wrote one of those scenes. So Dangerous to Know has these moments like that where that's where you're aiming. So if you aim for that, and even if you fall short of it, you probably wrote a pretty good scene, because that scene is incredible. And so I would have to say Inglourious Basterds. That's a big, big influence. And then this is going to be a strange choice, considering The Social Network and Seven and Fight Club and all the other perfect movies that this guy has made. But I love David Fincher's version, the American version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It just there's something about that movie that really, really speaks to me. And I think that one, personally, that one influenced me more than anything else on Dangerous to Know. Dangerous to Know isn't like that as far as the story goes, or necessarily, it doesn't have, similar characters, but it's the something about the spirit of it, just the experience that you have when you watch it. To me, it was just a really, really enjoyable movie. Cared about the characters, and it just was like for people like you and me, but I think also general audience, but especially for people like you and I, Alex, and the people who are listening to this, just candy in every way for the visual, for the
Oh,
mind, and
the
yeah,
poster. Remember that poster? Oh, that poster that they did with like one was nude and one was not nude,
yes,
and I
yeah,
just remember, and he like printed it on like silver or like
yeah,
metal. There were metal versions of it. I mean, Fincher's just nuts, man. I love David, man. He's just absolutely nuts. And I've actually
yeah,
geeked out with other big directors about Fincher on the
yeah,
show, which is hilarious. Like, dude, Fincher, man, did you see Mank? Oh my God, what did he do on Mank? Jesus Christ! Like, it's just like it's hilarious. When you're the director that other directors look up to, like
mm,
currently, like we all look up to
yes,
Kubrick, and everyone's like it's Kubrick, and he's legendary. But when you're a living director, everyone goes like, "Wow, dude!" Like Cameron, like what the hell, man? Like there's not another
yeah,
human being on the planet that can do what Cameron does, literally. And
yeah,
Nolan and what he and like with stuff like Nolan and Fincher both, but Nolan specifically, he's swinging for the fences on like Tenet. Tenet was a big swing. Some people
mm,
say he missed. Some people say it hit a home run, but he's taking those swings at that budget level.
yeah,
There's nobody
yeah,
doing that. That's
yeah.
awesome.
It is really awesome. I love seeing those kind of movies. I always hope that they're going to do well.
Yeah, so we get
It's
more of
such
them.
yes, see, because you thread the needle. Because if you can get those, yeah, you read my mind again. Yeah, exactly. Like if I felt bad that Blade Runner 2049 didn't do better at the box office because I
Oh,
don't want I don't want them to stop trying doing something like that because we all benefit from a movie that the scale of it and the visuals. I understand why some people didn't like it. Same situation as Tenet. And other people absolutely love it. I've got a digital copy of it I bought, but I just don't want them not to. I don't want them to go, oh, let's not make another one like that because we'd just be robbed. Because the next one could be a huge commercial success, but what a beautiful, beautiful movie. So inspirational. Like there's so many
I
things
love
about
it.
that
I
movie
love that
visually
movie.
that oh
No, I actually I always saw that in the theater when it came out, and I was just sitting there watching Deacon's work,
mm,
just sitting there, just like, oh my God, this is just gorgeous. Like, how is this happening? Like, oh, it's great. I love Blade Runner 2049. I think it's fantastic. They are making a series of it, by the way. I don't know if you know that or not. They are going to make a series, a Blade Runner series.
who's doing it? Is it on
I
Netflix
it'll
or
be it's not Netflix. I think it'll be on HBO Max because Warner owns it. So
oh
it'll be it just got announced that they're going to do a Blade Runner series. So
I didn't know that.
yeah,
That
so
I'm excited about that.
I'll see that too. Yeah, they're going to mine as much stuff as they have and not take any risks as humanly possible. That's what they do. So they're just going to take as much IP. People, oh, like we've heard of Blade Runner. Let's do a series about that.
Yeah.
But hey, for us, fantastic. Now, where can people find out about you, your work, and other projects you're doing, and find out when they can see the movie?
Yeah, I my YouTube channel, so it's David Simpson, and you can search it, and it's pretty easy to find. My trailer's on there, and I know Alex is gonna post that in the notes, the trailer, and also there's a little 2-minute version of the short that I've just recently done. So I kind of made that post-human short as like a little 2-minute trailer and like a teaser, I guess. But right now that's where I'd like to gather people as much as I can because it's hard to reach people on Facebook. I've got this big fan page in there. It's almost like they're all stuck behind jail unless I pay to boost posts. So that's the place to do it. And then I've also got my website. So that's posthumanovel.com. Yeah, all my info and links to my clips and books and audiobooks and everything I'm doing is on there.
David, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother, and sharing your journey on making this movie and hopefully inspiring some filmmakers out there to get off their butts and stop making excuses and hiding behind they don't have the right camera or the right this or that. I did that for a long time, and I finally just said, and I think you might feel me on this. I woke up and I was 41. I was like, I can't keep doing this. I gotta go make something, and I just got up and made it. And once that door opens, it's fantastic.
And we just talked about being robbed if they don't make these types of movies like Blade Runner 2049. Like, hopefully they'll keep doing it, but we're getting robbed if your listeners don't make their movie. I mean,
their
they
voice
might be incredible, and we don't get to see that. And if you got that passion and it's been bugging you, and if you're watching this, you almost for sure are pretty obsessed with being a filmmaker at some point. Either you are or you're obsessed with doing it. Go for it. Go for it.
And it is your responsibility as an artist to get your art out into the world. How you do it is up to you, but it's your responsibility, because you never know what a movie or a book or a blog post or a YouTube video, how that will affect someone else's life. Just like you watching that David Fincher thing, you just put out into the ether, and all of a sudden it changed the scope of how you did things, and that made your film. So it's
the movie's better. Yeah, I'm not kidding. This is not just because I'm talking to you right now.
No, but I'm just using it as an example. It's like, you never know when someone hears a podcast or reads an article. You never know. So get out there and do it. Thank you again, my friend.